Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to yet another leadership webinar for our 2022 to 2023 financial year. It's a pleasure to see you all here again. It's testament to the value of the webinar series and how much you have been gaining in terms of knowledge and hopefully applying some of the knowledge that you have garnered over the year. The theme for today's webinar is leading a high performance culture through meaningful relationships. And our presenter today is going to be Verieux Mourillon, commonly called or popularly called Val. Some of you would have met him in a webinar series about a couple of years ago. And it's a pleasure to have him back with us. Without much further ado, my name is Georgia Sinclair. I am the Senior Manager for Leadership Development here at Mind, and I'll be your host for today's event. It's my pleasure to hand over to our CEO, Dr. Ruby Brown, who will bring the opening remarks.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I wish to add my own special welcome to all of you on the platform this morning, joining us for today's leadership webinar. And an extra special welcome to our presenter, my colleague and friend, Val. Today's webinar theme, as Georgia indicated earlier, is really particularly dear to me. In fact, I must confess that when the theme was initially shared with me, it actually took me back to 2009, a time when I was working on my PhD and had to write a reflective paper on leadership. The approach I took for this paper included me hearing from my direct reports just how they experienced my leadership. And one of the things I learned in the process is that when you ask for feedback, be prepared to receive it. And for a certainty, feedback is a gift. One director, she shared with me just how she saw my leadership. She said to me, "You're not trusting." I'm not trusting. Well, after I was able to contain my initial shock with that feedback, I inquired as to what made her see me in this way. She had a simple but rather profound response. She said, "You know nothing about you. You never share anything about you as a person. Yes, we know you're the CEO and we know you're hardworking, etc. But who are you outside of the CEO persona? We know nothing else about you. And if you trusted us, you would not have had any difficulty sharing things about you." It was absolutely clear to me that day that without relationship, there's no trust. Yes, leadership is undoubtedly about relationships. But let me quickly share what was also clear with me that day. My director really was not advocating being my best friend. Or was she? No, she wasn't even suggesting that I should be the best friend of those who work with me. She was simply reminding me that relationship is at the foundation of leadership. In fact, almost everything in leadership comes back to relationship. So as I reflected on my leadership then, I realized I needed to be mindful of the need to be deliberate in my efforts to build relationships with the individuals I'm so privileged to lead, so that they and their teams and our agency as a whole can have the performance outcomes we need. And I've been keeping this in mind ever since. Yes, that little conversation with the director, along with the truth that relational efforts cannot be forced. And so if my efforts cannot be genuine, I shouldn't fake it. but rather just embrace mediocrity or look for an individual contributor role for the future. But guess what? I cannot do mediocrity or be individualistic. That's not leadership. And as I reflected on this, last night as I gathered my thoughts, I also concluded that the fact that you are here with us this morning tells me that neither can you. So, all the more reason why I'm so excited this morning to welcome you and to say to you that I trust my colleague Vo to leave you at the end of the webinar being more inspired and confident in leading a high-performance culture through meaningful relationship. But before I go, I must apologize for having to leave you before the end of our session today as a result of a competing priority. However, I'm very sure that you won't notice when I exit the platform. Why? You are going to be so engaged that you won't even notice. So I'm really just sharing with you because, it's the right thing to do. So again, welcome, and be assured that the next hour and 50 minutes will be time well spent. So best wishes for a great webinar.
Thank you very much, Ruby. And I am excited just hearing what you said a while ago. I'm excited and raring to go now, as I'm sure all our participants are, to get to the actual presentation. And trust me, I assure you, you're going to be fully engaged. You're going to be inspired by the end of this presentation. So it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter for our leadership webinar, Leading a High-Performance Culture Through Meaningful Relationships, Mr. Verieux Mourillon, VOW. Mr. Mourillon is a Chartered Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, a global professional in human resources, and a Master Action Learning Coach of the World Institute for Action Learning. He has 30 years of experience as a learning and development professional in an independent consultant role, as well as in leading the human resource and organizational development function at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the National Bank of Dominica Limited, and the Caribbean Examinations Council. VOW has consulted widely in the Caribbean for the public sector, private sector, and non-governmental organizations that include the Credit Union Movement, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, the Medical Benefits Scheme of Antigua and Barbuda, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the National Commercial Bank of Anguilla, the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs in Barbados, the Barbados Supreme Court, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services in Trinidad and Tobago, and the Management Institute for National Development in Jamaica. VOW makes inputs to regional and international conferences, the most recent being at the Global World Institute for Action Learning Week in September 2022, where he presented Applied Action Learning, Building a Customer Service Infrastructure. In November 2019, he presented The Impact of Organization Culture in Creating Smart Organizations at the 39th Annual Conference of the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica, HRMAJ. And in September 2019, he co-presented Revitalizing the Caribbean with Action Learning at the 2019 Global World Institute for Action Learning Conference in Sao Paulo, Brazil. VOW holds a bachelor's degree from the University of the West Indies and a master's degree in education with a specialization in training and development from the University of Sheffield. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Val.
Thank you very much, Georgia, and thank you, Dr. Brown, both of you for your kind comments. You've set me quite a high bar, but let me just say I am pleased to be with you, and I do hope that we get something out of this that's valuable for all of us. What I will do, you saw the topic, so I can't tell you that I'm going to cover everything related to that topic. What I'm going to do is give you some insights, stimulate you in some way that you will then be provoked to ask questions and to make changes yourself. So what we want to do today is review the key elements of a high performance culture, examine what makes a relationship effective and mutually rewarding, some points on that. We're going to try to see how it is we build and maintain some relationships. And we will close by trying to connect some relationships with employee engagement and the effectiveness of leadership. So what I will do is to start. I always do this. I'm going to pick on some people, so don't feel. I'm going to do it at random. I'm just going to ask you to put your voice in the conversation. So I'm going to ask you a simple question. What's top of mind for you today? And I will just try to field a few. Let's take about 3 of you, and I'm going to call you at random if you don't mind. So I see a very interesting name here, Abraham Lincoln. So if you're hearing me, can you open your mic and just tell me what's top of mind for you today?
Hey, good morning, all.
Morning.
Sugar Caribbean Adventures. Top of mind for me today is just basically to, get a new, after us being, locked away for almost 2 years, just get a new perspective, and a new outlook, and how to, basically have this, professional leadership quality, in this new realm.
Okay. Thanks, Abraham. Have you? But tell me something. That name you have, has it put you in trouble, or has it given you?
It has given me a lot of opportunities. I remember the first time I traveled, and when I landed at JFK, the immigrations were, Abraham Lincoln, and I went to that couple at the time I was playing music.
Yes.
They searched all of my friends except me.
I like it. No. If I had a name like that, I'd milk it. I'd milk it to the end.
The only drawback to it is everywhere I go, I have to show my ID.
Yes, but to be sure.
Yeah.
and soon they start asking for your birth paper as well. All right. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, man.
Okay, good. Audrey Jones Chong, if you can hear me and if you can open your mic, just tell us what's top of mind for you today. Okay, I might have to go. Okay, going once, going twice, Audrey. Charmaine Gordon, how about you? What's top of mind for you today?
Good morning.
Morning.
In this session, top of morning for me today is looking forward to my journey from Kingston to Trelawney.
Well,
At the end of the day.
I know a little about Jamaica, but I'm not sure about the geography. So Kingston to Trelawney is what direction? West or
So
east?
I will be northeast.
North. Oh, is that the tourist part with all the nice beaches and so?
Oh yes, it's along the north coast.
And can I get into your business? Is it for pleasure or is it for work?
For home.
Oh, you live there.
Right, but I work in Kingston. So I'm so looking forward to travel home this afternoon.
All right, you don't go every day, no? You don't go every day?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, get there safely and enjoy the weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Denisha Isaacs, what's top of mind for you today?
Hi, good morning. Just to learn about what's new skills or expertise that are there within the 21st century that we can use to implement within the HR departments, and how is it that we can lead our team members and our staff to improve efficiency and productivity within the tourism sector.
Okay. Now, you know, that's something I would love to hear what you just said. But what about your business now? You notice the other people give me a little bit about their business. Anything you want to tell me about that? What's happening with you generally?
I am
Yes.
okay. Things are going great
Uh-huh.
for the most part.
Okay. You've been to any shows in Kingston since the lockdown? Well, since the shows start back going up at the theaters.
I was living in Kingston for over 10 years. I recently migrated to St. James.
Oh, so you don't get to go to the theater then?
I haven't been there in a while.
Ah, okay, you missed something. I was in Jamaica recently and I saw something called No Hope for Hopi. It was quite powerful. There's 3 actors, but the theme was so heavy. It made you laugh, made you cry, made you laugh, made you cry again. Something that Dawkins put together, I think. He was the playwright. Okay, good. Let me see. Thanks. And I'm trying. I see some names, but I'm not sure that's your real name. It might be your name on the system. Janice Taylor. Janice Taylor. I'm just going to take 2 more and then we'll start. Janice Taylor. Going once, going twice, Janice.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
As what the caller just said, I agreed what she's saying. I'm really energized just to hear, because so far the persons who have spoken has already energized me. I'm trying to grasp as much as possible to see how I can best change what is happening here at the school where I work.
Excellent.
So we can produce more.
Nice. Okay, good. I hope we don't disappoint. Mark Phillips, how about yourself? Mark Phillips, what's top of mind for you?
Morning, sir. Morning, colleagues.
Morning.
It depends on which hat I am wearing at that particular instant, because I wear several hats, and so it depends on which one of the hats I have on. The what would be top of the mind. So when I put on my union hat, what's top of the mind is ongoing wage negotiation that we're involved in, because I'm president of the union. I'm the president of one of the unions at my organization. So it depends on which one of the hats that I have on at the particular instance.
But let me ask you about that one, Mark. So because I'm having a conversation with another group that they have 2 unions as well. When you present your case as a union, do you as a union feel obligated to justify, to present evidence to support your claim and all of that? Do you feel it an obligation on you to make sure you put forward a good case supported by evidence? Is that something that you do and you feel obligated to do?
Yes, to a large extent, yes, because more often than not, when you present your claim to the government in our case, or to our authority in our case, they may come back to say you may have to justify why it is that you're demanding this particular percent increase, or why you're demanding an adjustment to a particular allowance, or why you're demanding or why you're claiming for a new allowance in a particular case. And as such, you have to, prepare yourself to know that, for want of a better word, you're in a battle, and you're not just going to go there and tell somebody, I need this, that, and they're going to say, here it is, and we shake hands and move away from the table. They have their mandate that they want to, that they have to preserve. We have our mandate from our members that we want to try to achieve. And so more often than not, you have to be able to justify what it is that you're asking for, and why you believe that you deserve, that particular item that you're asking for.
Yes, ma'am. I really appreciate that, Mark, because I agree with you, but I'm not a union person myself. And these other groups will tell me, yes, they'll just make their claim and it's up to the management of the organization, to come back and say they cannot do it. But I was kind of holding the same position like you are saying, anytime you ask for something, you should have some clear reasons. And maybe as a union, you don't put all of them on the table right away. You hold some in your back pocket, but at least you should have a solid reason that somebody could look at and say, boy, there's a point here, or at least something they could debate, So thanks for the insight. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so group, let's move ahead, and I just want to remind you that what I just did, it sounds like just something that, something about cordiality or something, just as something to unfreeze and so. But I want to draw your attention to that. It has to do with how we interact as people. Now, the thing is, we are naturally like that, but somehow when we get into work, because of how maybe we were schooled, we sometimes put that aside and forget that, the human side of us is what makes things reach excellent levels. And if we don't nurture that, if we don't reach into that, then it's not going to go anywhere. So in other words, by asking you what's top of your mind, without even telling you, you say, probably this fellow is probably interested in what I'm doing or what I'm thinking about and so on. And just the fact that somewhere in your head that goes on, it opens the door for some kind of relationship to be established, rather than if I just came here and just started telling you and didn't ask you anything, so be mindful of that. This is something you can use as well. Okay, I'm going to ask you I'm going to give you three minutes to think of those three statements. People are people first and everything else after. The next one, people do things first for people they like. And the third one is actually a quote from someone. People will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I want you to think deeply about those and choose one you want to respond on. And what I will do is, again, I'll call 5 people. But if you have a burning point on any one of them, just put it in the chat. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes starting now. Okay, 1 more minute and I'll call a few people. I saw some in the chat as well. Right. So let's go. And anyone you want to tackle, that's fine. Ricardo, you want to give it a shot? Any one of the comments any one of the statements that you want to report on? And then after I've heard the 5, I'll then go to the chat and I'll read, because I think Charmaine has something there and somebody else has something.
The one that I looked at is people do things for people that they like.
Uh-huh.
And my comment was being an educator and a learning development manager in an organization. The first thing you have to do is definitely engage them, because if they don't like you, they will never learn anything from you. So even when you're trying to actually save them from going down the wrong path, if you have not engaged them, if they don't like you for whatever reason, they will not move at all.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks. What about Rosemary, Jeffrey? Rosemary? I hope I'm saying the name properly. Going once, going twice. Sharon Williams?
Morning.
Morning.
Well, people are people first and everything else after, meaning people will do what interests in their best interest first, or what motivates them first, and then everything else after.
Yes. Okay, thanks for that insight. I have Yannick Brady Drummonds. I hope I have that name, I said it properly. If you're here, just put your voice in it. Tell us which one and what you think about it.
Good morning.
Morning.
Right. So the one that I chose was people do things first for people they like.
Uh-huh.
So my thought on it is that I don't think it's a good thing that you do things just for persons that you like. Because sometimes you cannot put your emotions above your position if we're looking at this at a professional standpoint. Because if we look at it in a case as if, say, for example, you're in HR and you do not like someone, which is wrong, you basically will not be, if they have a specific situation, then you may not look at it logically. You may, use your emotions to make a decision, and that decision may not be the right one in that situation.
Yes. Thanks. So there's balance. So it happens, but you have to have balance and you have to have guidelines, ethical principles, and so on. Okay, I can work with that. Fabian Taylor, it's number 4, and then one more, and then we take the chat. Fabian Taylor, if you're there. Any one of the statements. Going once, going twice. Ebony Gordon Sullivan.
I was here hoping you would call me.
Well, good. By providence, though, you have to say something.
All right. People, well, I really like the statements. I'm gonna tackle people do things first for the people they like. And it's a biased thing to do, as my colleague said earlier. But the truth is, we need to get over our emotions and do our job and be professional and handle things in an ethical and fair manner. But it's often a little easier for persons to deal with the persons who are not as difficult to deal with. So if you have somebody that's a little challenging to deal with, it's easier for you to deal with somebody who's a little more agreeable or amenable to whatever you're doing. So I agree, we need to be ethical, we need to be fair, we need to get over our own emotions and how we feel about people and be professional. But I'm also saying, sometimes it can be easier to deal with persons who are easier to deal with. So that's my response.
Good, good. No, I can work with that. Derek, I think I had Derek Grant. I'll take a last one. Derek Grant. And nobody's tackling the last one. People will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. Nobody's tackling that one. Derek, you want to give that one a shot?
Sure, morning all.
Morning,
The one that jumps out at me, people do things first for people they like. That one, I believe, is not a good thing to practice because it clouds objectivity. You're not able to strike a balance in any situation that you're dealing with. That's my quick reaction.
Okay, okay. You have any thoughts on the next one? People will not care how much you know.
Until they know how much you care. That one is true as well. In dealing with people, you have to show empathy and so on and so forth. So that one as well is also important.
All right, good. Thanks a lot. Let's go to the chat. I make sure I can handle them. There are quite a few. Oh, whoa. Okay, I'm going to try to capture those in the chat and just share them with you. The first one I saw was, okay. Oh, I thought it was Charmaine, but it's Ricardo. Okay, but Ricardo has already shared with us, which is fine. Charmaine said number one is situational and the other two are true. And right. Alderine also said it depends on the situation for one, and for two, it's unfortunate truth. And someone said not all the time. And I think I have 1, 2, and 3. All behaviors are motivated by self-interest. Okay. Thanks, Lenworth. Did not. Right. Okay. The first, that should always be our approach to any form of relationships. That's Stacey Ann Clark is saying. That first one, people are first and everything else after. She said, yes, that's it. And people's self-interest, as Marlon, also motivate what they do. Benefits can motivate more than liking someone. Okay. So true, your passion forces attention. Aldin, you said true for number one, you have to understand the individuality of your team members also. All persons are not the same and they have different motivating factors. Noel Beckford says the third one stands out most to me. I get somebody for that third one because it suggests that regardless of how much you know, it's irrelevant if you're not showing care, consideration on those around you. Thank you very much for tackling that one, Noel. Most people stay clear of it. David, people are first, irrespective of this. You should always try to achieve the company's objective. That's the main reason why they employed your service. Wendy Thompson says COVID highlighted this for me. Number 3, as it was hard to get anybody to do anything if first you did not show that you cared about what was happening with them in that stressful period. That's a great point, Wendy, and a great reminder that because I think largely COVID was there to show us some lessons. We learned them, we used them while COVID was going on, and a lot of us seem to have forgotten the lessons that we got from there. So thanks for that. Barbara Spooner. Number 3, that's so it's only the people who are writing right about number 3. I believe that this is true to some extent. That's that people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. I experienced this with my current team. The staff will perform, but when you build a relationship with them, ask about their family and show genuine interest in their well-being, they'll put everything into their performance. Excellent. Sometimes we forget the human in the mix of things. That's sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I'll just say the middle name, Ferguson. And Colleen Campbell says, people are people first and everything else after, highlights the importance of recognizing the humanity and the inherent value of each individual, regardless of their job, title, role in society. And people are people first. Again, that's Nadine. Okay, so there are more than I can read, but I guess you all can go up and down the chat and I'll see if I can collect them before we leave so that I can at least have, a record. Okay, so let's go. So people are first and everything else after. The point there is that our humanness, no matter where we are in the world, regardless of how much melanin we have in our skin or not, regardless of education level, rich, poor, by whatever standards we use, People are people first and everything else after. We all, even our physiological functions, they're the same. And some of them usually don't have us in a very dignified position, but we all do those things. We have to do them as humans. So, and then at a higher level, some of the things that we do, our caring, our communication, the fact that we care for our children and we care for people, you know, and we want to be loved and we want to love, you know, that comes first before your title as president or prime minister or anything. And I recall once when the one organization I went to, and they said the union gives a hard time, they can never get an agreement. You know, they have like 2 years, 3 years negotiating, they can't get an agreement. And so what I did, I got the CEO and myself as executive manager of HR and OD. And so we had the board waiting for the agreement to sign. But before that, I did the research. I went to the Employers Federation. I went around the country to see what kind of percentages people had given, you know, what kind of values and so on. And because it was a commercial bank, I said, okay, let's pitch ours just a little bit above, yeah? And so I had that in my hand, that this is what was being given out there, and we're giving you better than this. But we brought the lady into so the board is next door in the boardroom. I'm with the CEO and this lady who is the head of the union, and we spent half an hour or more saying nothing about union, nothing about the agreement. All we talked about was her grandchildren and how great they are and how lovely, and we discussed that, and I talked about my children, and the CEO talked about his children, and so on and so on. And then she was in a good mood, and then she knows the board is next door, and I say, and you know what we're saying, I went around and I found out, you know, that Flo, it wasn't Flo at the time, just giving wireless giving this percentage, the electricity company giving that, we are pitching ours above, and this is how much we're giving, and we're giving that. And she said, okay, that's acceptable. However, can you also do this, that, and that? So I believe in the course of the thing, she still knew what she wanted to get, but as previous negotiations had gone, where she had not established that kind of rapport with the negotiators, she would have probably stuck out for even more and probably resist even the things that I put on the table. And so when we went across to the board, they were shocked because they couldn't believe that we had come with an agreement from the union, you know? And so I am not saying it will happen every time, but it helps if you establish, if you understand that person on the other side of the table, or that person you're supervising, is a human being first, yeah, and everything else after. The second one, people talk about being objective and all of that. I just need to tell you that, or remind you, that human beings are not logical creatures who occasionally are emotional. Human beings are emotional creatures who can choose sometimes to be objective and logical and rational. Okay, once you get that in your head, you will change your approach to how you manage people. We start with the emotions. That's what runs the thing, yeah? And all over the world. And I heard some of you say, yes, you should be professional and objective. Yeah, really. But what drives us is not that. What drives us is down here, the heart. You know, we connect with people. When, for example, when I'm doing interviews, I always want to have a balanced panel. And I always tell the panel, I will tell you if I feel a bias. Because as soon as a person walks into that interview room, I either like them or I don't like them. No, that's not logical. It's a whole set of subjective things going on. But it happens. As a human being, it happens. And I have to deal with it. So people do things first for people they like is really something that you have to bear in mind. Now, where you will have the difficulty is that maybe in your experience, the things some people do to get others to like them don't seem ethical. They don't seem right, you know? So of course you have to guard against that. But getting people to like you in the right way means building a meaningful relationship with them, making sure that they value the relationship they have with you. Same thing with your children. If you can build a meaningful relationship with your children, you don't have to hold no big stick over them after that. You know, once they've reached 9, 10, 11, once you have a meaningful relationship with them that they value, even if they do wrong, they will come back quickly because they don't want to damage that relationship, because it releases whatever those nice things in the brain and in the nervous system. That relationship gives them that, and they get a high on it, and they don't want to lose it, and so they will fall by the wayside and they come back because they don't want to break that tie. So that, and the same thing with the people you supervise. If they value the relationship with you, they will work overtime without any money. They will grumble about it, but they will still do it because they have established the relationship with you. If you don't do that, then they will clock out regardless of what trouble you're in, unless you put a big stick over them and you have to stand there with the big stick all the time, and that will take your energy. They will clock out on time, or they might even clock out 5 minutes before, so that by the time they're going out through the door, it's the exact time to be out. So I like many of you, the way you answered, that's how I would have answered when I was a young professional. I'll give you a quick example. I went to work for one of the central banks, the regional central bank, and I remember we had some very difficult things to do. We had to chop the staff from 330 to 250, and you realize for me to do that in a short space of time, that means I'm sending home people every day, and there are a number of restructuring things I had to do that would drive people crazy. And I remember going up to the governor, and he was concerned, and I said to him, Governor, the people that work with me do not have to like me for me to get the job done through them. Yeah, which is what some of you just said a while ago, being professional. And as wise as the fellow was, he went quiet. Then he raised his head, and all he said to me is, "But it helps." And I argued in my head for 10 years about that, because I said, no, it can't be that. It can't be that. Being professional, people don't have to like me. I have to do the job. And then after 10 years, it hit me that that's what happens. That if I can build a relationship with my people, they will go over and beyond. They'll give me discretionary time, even when they don't like what's happening in the organization. For me, they will stay and they will do the work, and they will, they'll tell me they're not happy having to do it, but they will get it done. And I found the same thing with my children. If they like a teacher, or if they have established a relationship with a teacher, they're more likely to learn the subject well. The same subject, Okay, Grantley, I'm coming back to you. So the same subject for a teacher that they don't have that relationship with, then they will not learn. Grantley, are you saying that the approach where you try to build rapport before you get to the business, is that what you're saying that people will find distracting? Grantley, I'm reading your chat. No? Okay. Yes? Right. Okay, no. And I get that because we have not been schooled that way. But there are some cultures, if you go, for example, some parts in the East, if you go there, you go for a negotiation and you have 3 days, they'll spend the whole 2 days, the first 2 days, just getting to know you, getting to know whether they can trust you, getting to know, the thing is, we have been taught to work in our heads, and most of us lead with our heads. But as a human being, you have to lead with head, heart, and guts, for it to be fully effective, for it to get, with your head alone, you'll get by minimally, but you wouldn't really, unless you can drive your people, you're not going to get the kind of wowing results. But if you combine the three, you will get there. So they build a relationship, and then, then you do it. So I understand. Culturally, I wouldn't even say culturally, because in our private lives, we do just that. We build a relationship first, and then we work on the other things. But at school, I guess we were taught in a way that, hey, to be professional is to lock out your humanness and all of that, which is wrong. I think that's a mistake. We have to go back and fix that. But like many of you have won, it is something you have to do cautiously. There's a way, there's a context for relationships at work. There are boundaries, there are ethical considerations, and all of that. So the people do things first. There's another issue. We had a regional office. This senior economist was getting a lot of problems getting data from the other countries so that she could do her work. and she was complaining, and she came to an action learning group and she said she doesn't know what to do. And then one of the suggestions that came back from there, one of the young people in the group asked her, what do you do when you go to those countries with these people? And she said, what do you mean? And he said, can I explain? And he said, listen, I am in a regional group, Windward Islands or Leeward Islands, something, either volleyball or something. And he said, I'm on the executive. Every time I visit one of the countries, I make sure I go out for drinks with the other people, the executives of the local executives, executive group. And, you know, we drink and we, you know, have fun and so on. And so what she did, she went back and reflected, and then she started trying to build relationships with these people. And 6 weeks later, she was so excited. She came back and said, you know, these people are sending me the data. They're actually calling me before I call them and say, you know, can I help with this? Can I send this? And she said, no, I know all of them. I know their birthdays. I know how many children they have. I know this. It made a big difference. And I know sometimes, as I said, we are schooled to think it's not the right thing to do. But as humans, you have to build that relationship. Very, very important. People will not care how much you know until they know how much you, they will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is also very true. If you don't, that's why you like some facilitators and you don't like others. Those who try to build a relationship with you, you're more likely to figure, okay, yeah, maybe that person knows what they're talking about. Yeah. The people who don't build a relationship with you, you say, this guy took that from a book. Yeah. So it's something to think about. Okay. So let's move along smartly. I haven't, Georgia, if you're on and you see anything in the chat that I need to pay attention to, you can just bring it up for me because I don't have visibility of the chat now.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks, Georgia. So what defines a high performance culture? And these are not all the things, but these are just some things I picked up. And if you notice, all of them are rooted in relationships, good relationships. So in a high performance culture, employees are motivated, they're productive, and they're engaged. And later on, you'll see I picked out two videos from Gallup. Gallup is a company that does these employee engagement things. And I took 2 of their videos, which we'll show at the end, because they strongly believe that highly engaged employees will make an organization more productive, more innovative. You know, it will have all those great things. There's mutual trust and respect. And I think it's Dr. Brown, who mentioned at the beginning, you know, it's through that you build the relationship helps that. Now, just another point, I don't have the reference at the top of my mind, but there's a lady at Harvard who did some research about 3 years ago. And so she was investigating the factors that make people want to work with someone. And she narrowed it down to two which she calls warmth and respect. So respect is, I have great, and respect not in the way I used it here, but respect in the sense of your competence. So I value your competence. You know, I think you're good at that and I value that. So that's one. The second one is warmth, the fact that I can trust you. I feel, you know, I can confide in you some things. I feel that you wouldn't backstab me, that sort of thing. And in her research, she showed that the warmth trumped the valuing of competence several times, about 5 times over to the other one. And of course, she made a little a light comment in one of her interviews that it probably goes back to the cavewoman days, in the sense that a cave person would be more likely to take into their cave someone they were sure will not kill them during their sleep, whether or not that person knew how to light a fire. Yeah. So I know logically we're thinking, and just like when we select people, sometimes in recruitment, people get so disappointed because they say, okay, I'm the best qualified, I have most experience, I have the skills. Why would they choose B instead of me, you know? And then they forget that when we're recruiting, whether we do it, some companies do it deliberately. Other companies, it just happens because we are humans. We choose people that we feel will fit with us. I remember in one organization where I was pushing for diversity on the panel, because all the executives were young, We were all in shape. We were, you know, not hard to look at. You understand? So we had a kind of profile. All of us looked like that. So when we sat on the interview panel, we were giving a picture to that candidate that this is what we're looking for. And instinctively, we were looking for that as well. So, and the way you do it is that you can't do it logically, right? But you scrutinize somebody who doesn't fit the profile that you have in mind, that what you're looking for. You will scrutinize what they have, their credentials, more strictly than someone you feel fits, and you wonder, yeah, come in my cave, come into my cave. I'm safe with you. Yeah. So it's very important So then I made sure that on the panel I tried to have people who were of different ages, have both genders, and other factors, to make sure that the panel looks representative of our staff body. And that is the tension with a lot more people felt, okay, I could give this place a shot, you know? So that is important. Employees now, in a high performance culture, employees choose to take part in decision making and to share ideas. They feel more empowered because of how we work with them. And the company ends up being more profitable. And I know in the public sector is not about profits, but cost effectiveness, where you're saving, you are limiting waste, you are building synergies, you know, and making more out of every dollar. Employees celebrate successes together in high performance cultures. They celebrate together. Contributions are recognized. Now, number 6, the point I want to bring to you there is that it's, sorry, I'm seeing a notice from mine, so I'm hoping it's not, yes, Prudence, I do. I would say no. So someone just mentioned that was asking the question: am I looking at looks as well? And yes, I would. So for example, I would try to select a deputy, or if I don't have that physical characteristic among the people that normally sit on the interview panel, I go the next level down and make sure that person is represented, yeah, in a way that makes, you know, most people who come comfortable, yes. So in terms of contributions being recognized, and I put by all in brackets, because many times employees are saying that, the management, they should all recognize us, they should give recognition. In a high performance culture, not only are the bosses giving recognition to the staff, but they are giving recognition to each other. And that is even more important. That, okay, the other way is like, yes, approval and all of that, if you have that insecurity. But when your colleagues give you, you know, that kind of, recognition, it's powerful. So in a high performance culture, performance management is not something you do once a year or anything like that. It's a daily thing, but it's the way in which it's done. So in Brazil, I saw this well, that was 4 years ago. It must be advanced now, but they have, I hit upon something that some of the companies are using there called autonomia. And it's interesting because what they do, they have their strategy and they have their work teams, and each team buys into the strategy, but the teams fairly run themselves. They once they know what their output is, what they have to produce, they manage the performance. So they determine who should be let go from the team. They determine when it's hiring time, they hire. They assess themselves and put their performance forward. They determine the emoluments, you know, given within the boundaries that they have. And when I asked I asked one person who was running this, and he was like, no, this is like the output is exceptional, the quality, the consistency, you know, all of that becomes great. Now I know it will take a while before we get there, because usually we hold on to something for a couple of generations before we feel we can let it go. Continuous learning is practiced in high performance cultures. And of course, that number 8, what the high performance culture organization does, it balances its investment in people, processes, physical environment, and technology. And it does that in a way that will enhance the employee's ability to learn, discover, innovate, and be, you know, a good team player and lead. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. So What makes a relationship effective and mutually rewarding? In relationships, everything begins with respect, with the desire to place value on other people. Everything. You know, when you do relationships, respect is that key. And all over the world, in all cultures, people say that's what they want from their leaders. Of course, sometimes we don't understand fully what respect is. A quick case, my nephew, I went back to work to take a job, so that because his father left early, so I said, okay, this youngster I need to get him on a constructive path. So I went to work so he could see how a man treats his job. You know, you get up, you go to work on time, you prepare for your work, you know, the week before, you have all your clothes ready, you come for lunch, you take just the lunch hour and no more, you go back and you come back and so on. So he eventually left community college, took a job while he's staying with me. And so one evening I came back because I had been with some of my friends, you know, we were at the bar and so on. And they were arguing about, not arguing, but they complaining about how disrespectful young people are to them. And so I got in the argument. So when he came, I started on him. I say, you know, I started telling him about his generation and how disrespectful they are to older people. And he politely listened. And at the end, he asked me very quietly, he said, Uncle Val, has any young person ever been disrespectful to you? And I went quiet because I could not find an instance where a young person had been disrespectful to me. So that had me thinking, why is it they've been disrespectful to my peers who are the same age as I am and have most of the other characteristics? Why are they being disrespectful to them and not to me? Of course, I still don't know the full answer, but I'm guessing it is because I show them respect. You know, I show the young people respect, and therefore they find it easier to respect me. The second one is civility. And I put that in there because we understand it in different ways. And civility, I'm just doing a time check. Civility has a price. And we tolerate in the Caribbean a certain amount of incivility at different levels. So I've seen, for example, a very senior person being, you know, everybody knows that person is difficult and how they treat people, you know, is not really the way they should be doing it and all that. But somehow people are terrified of the person, so they produce, probably not great, not creative stuff, but they produce the nuts and bolts. And so the higher leadership now continues to promote that person and gives them more opportunity and so on, not realizing that that person is leaving a lot of dead bodies along the way. They're leaving something there in the organization that will hamper you from reaching your full potential. The next thing is shared experiences. And sometimes people feel, okay, the staff picnic is just a thing, you know, just to check a box and so on. But those events, the staff picnic, the competitions, all of that, that is in an effort to have this group of people have shared experiences, something other than work that they have shared that they can speak about, because that helps to strengthen the relationship. Those shared experiences make up the glue technology that will hold your organization together, you know, and make it weather the storm and make it rise. Yeah. Of course, trust, we can't speak too much. We can't speak enough about trust, because that one is so critical that when you lose it, you can't, you know, it's hard to get it back. So I must be able to trust. I must be able to come to you. I must know, you know, that you won't stab me in my back, that you will follow, you know, due process, even when I do something that's way out, you know, you work with me in a particular way. Reciprocity. So with reciprocity, you want to make sure that you are not always giving and not getting back in the relationship. The little caveat there is that in a I don't know if the word mature is correct, but in a well-established relationship, reciprocity doesn't mean I give you now and you give me back now. Reciprocity means at my time of need, it's okay for you to be giving, meaning giving emotional support, giving. because you trust that in your time of need, I will give. So it's not one. It's, as required, that you can get it. And of course, mutual enjoyment. Both of us must enjoy, being together, doing things together, working together. And so that's the thing. So incivility, which I'm noticing in a lot of organizations, and people have all sorts of words for it. I am in groups where people say, where I see incivility, and when I call it out, people say, oh no, that's how Jane is. No, Jane cannot be like that because it has a cost. There's a cost to what Jane is doing. So we should stop her, and it doesn't mean the boss has to stop her, but any one of us can say, listen, we are not putting up with that because it has a cost. So, because the people who suffer incivility, so Jane being uncivil to Mary feels that pain, and she can't hit back at Jane, but she hits back at somebody else in the organization, or she makes the organization suffer in some way, So the thing is, when you're doing that, when you're hitting back, sometimes you not even thinking of it as revenge. It's just a kind of natural thing that happens. So with incivility, if you tolerate that, creativity will suffer, performance and team spirit will go down. Customers and clients might turn away because they don't like to be in that environment of incivility. And then managing those incidents of incivility, it is expensive. The CEO has to spend time sorting out, problem solving. Directors have to sit because these two people causing problems. So there's a big cost. There's a big cost to it. Okay, that one, right. So just some research, and I just have one reference here, but there are several places you can go and find the cost of this. You can see what's happening in this one study. 48% of the people who were recipients or victims of incivility intentionally decreased their work effort. Now, 47% intentionally decrease the time they spend at work. They don't feel like coming there anymore, so they come late, or they leave early because something in the environment, the relationships and all that, not working, because all this, again, we're going back to relationships. If the relationships are okay, then the incivility will not happen, because people know, they know how, because these same people, there are other people in their lives, they don't treat like that. 38% intentionally decrease the quality of their work, which is sad because then they put a bad stamp, on it. And 80% lost work time because they're worrying about this incivility, talking about it, discussing it, grumbling about it to everybody and their dog. So there's a cost there. Of course, they lost time avoiding the offender, because sometimes you'll be surprised. Yeah, you say it's big people, but they might just say, listen, I don't want to meet that person in the morning, and if she's coming at that time, I come in at another time. If she comes through that door, I'll come through that door. And that affects the work, because sometimes these two people need to work together, to get things done. Of course, 66% said their performance declined, 78% said that the commitment to the organization. Look at that. So this is one person, that has been uncivil to them, and they're losing commitment to the organization, and most likely blaming the CEO, and the CEO probably have no idea that that's what happened, that it's incivility that caused the problem. And 12% said they left the job because of the uncivil treatment, and 25% admitted to taking their frustration out on customers. There's one case where this lady suffered this incivility, and she at work, and she reported it, hoping action to be taken. And they actually promoted the manager who was uncivil to her. Of course, within a couple of days, she died of a heart attack. Now, I cannot say that's what killed her, but maybe it contributed. The fact that you feel, something wrong has been done to you, So it's something I'd like you to look out for, because it does not help building relationships and building a workplace with strong relationships, which we said will make you be more productive and all those other wonderful things. It will not help the building of and maintenance of those relationships if you tolerate certain levels of incivility. Okay. Now, I wanted to bring these 2 points to bear. Now, Dr. Brown, when she mentioned her work, and Dr. Brown wrote something called Professional Hood many years ago, where she looked at, I believe it's the same issue. She looked at this and in the region, It's coming more and more in the literature now, and they're calling it moral injury. And so I just wanted to bring the term to your attention and also to distinguish between burnout and moral injury. Burnout used to be popular before. And what we do when we say somebody suffering burnout, we deal with the individual. We give them counseling, we give them time off and all of that. But moral injury requires a repair in the environment. The environment is what the problem is. So the person doesn't feel like coming to work, they don't feel like producing, they're not giving up their best because they've suffered moral injury. So you cannot self-care yourself out of moral injury. So it needs governance. It needs better governance to address, what's happening in the organization. And moral injury occurs when our sense of right and wrong are violated. So if year upon year, you ask people to do things that they consider to be wrong or foolishness or whatever they will, and they will suffer moral injury. And then what you'll do if you have a large enough group of these people who are suffering moral injury, you can't talk to them because anything you say to them, right, will trigger the things that cause the moral injury. So they're not hearing just the words you say, they're hearing it in the context of what has happened to them before, so that's something. And again, this will work against relationships in the organization. So how do we build and maintain relationships? Okay, we have about, under an hour. To build and maintain some relationships. And this is not an exhaustive list, but it's the things I find that are very, that I probably should bring to your attention. Intentions versus impact. Many times we are running around in our head about our intentions. The people we're dealing with, the people we're serving, they don't know our intentions and most of them don't care. What they know is our impact. So let me give you an example. If today I decided I want to make a better set of slides for you because I wanted to make sure you were impressed with my slides and so on and so on. And I decided to take more time to do that. And by taking more time, I came late for the session. So I had you waiting for 20 minutes before I could start. Now remember my intention. My intention was to please you with my slides. But guess what the impact is? The impact is that you feel disrespected. You feel how this man can have us sit down for 20 minutes. He's not a professional. He's wasting our time. You see the difference. So I'm here thinking I did a great thing by sitting and taking time and making sure, taking the extra time to give you a wowing presentation, that looks beautiful, bells and whistles and all of that. And I come late. You're not concerned about my intentions. All you're concerned about is the impact. So I want you going forward to think about that very carefully. And especially when you work with your people, always ask, hey, listen, those were my intentions, but the impact is this. And be very clear on where they are different. And so you change how you do what you do so that you get a different impact, a more desirable impact. Thinking styles. So I do a lot of work in terms of styles, behavioral styles, and thinking styles. And there are many models out there. And I think most of you have encountered those in your studies or in your practice, different styles. So I'm just going to illustrate with just this one example. So linear thinkers as opposed to parallel thinkers. Now, neither is good or bad. That's how humans are. There's some are linear thinkers and some are parallel thinkers. So let me explain. So a linear thinker is someone who must finish this task before they go on to the next one and to the next one. They need that order. They have to go in that order. The advantage with the linear thinker for us and our organization is that they get deeper. They get a deeper level of expertise. So they take a subject and let me tell you, they master that subject. They go way to the bottom. A parallel thinker, on the other hand, is one who you're thinking of several things at the same time. Now, that may seem disorganized, but the value there is that person is able to pull something from things that didn't look related and come up with breakthroughs by combining things because they think all of that. Now, here's the trouble we have in organizations. If you have a parallel thinker organizing a meeting or organizing a session and they run it in parallel style, The linear thinkers in that audience, you will lose them. They will not follow you. They will not follow you. They will think you're a joke. They think, yeah, you're disorganized, and they will tune out. Yeah. The parallel thinkers, though, if you do the reverse, if you put parallel thinkers in a session that's structured, they will be bored. They won't enjoy themselves, but they will follow. You see the difference? So what I'm saying, I'm appealing to you, if you're a parallel thinker, that if you're having a session where you have both parallel and linear thinkers, structure it. Don't do your natural thing and go all over the place. Because if you jump from that there to over there, and then you do that 2 or 3 times, the linear people check out. They may not leave physically, but they close down. Yeah. But if you do it structured, you won't lose the parallels, because they will tell you, oh, that was boring and so on, but they can follow the structure. The linear thinkers either cannot or don't want to follow, you know, a jumble structure. So my point here is not just about linear and parallel. I just want you to be aware that we are not all wired the same way. So pay attention to that. As you build relationships, as you encourage relationships in your organization, understand that people are wired differently, and make adjustments. As if you're leading them, make adjustments for those differences in how they're wired. Now, sometimes you have to call the shots, but then you do it being very aware. You're not doing it because you say, okay, because I'm like this, they should be like that. You're doing it because you say, on this occasion, we need us to be, you know, or we need to do some deep thinking on this, or we need to go from A to B to C to D on this occasion. Yeah, that's where you can lay down the law. But otherwise, you know, you work with the differences. There are differences in culture, and again, you can research that. There's a lot written about culture, organizational culture, national culture, and so on. I will just touch on one element of culture, and one that it's because of some work I'm doing now, in terms of high context cultures and low context cultures. So a country like Japan and Kenya, we say those are high context cultures. So a lot of what they say, a lot of their communication is not very direct. It's more implicit communication. So the context carries more meaning than the actual words and actions of the people. That's a high context, you know, culture. A low context culture, on the other hand, the words and actions of the person is what carries the weight. That's what has the meaning. The context is irrelevant. Yeah. So for example, in a low context culture, hierarchy is used for convenience, whereas in a high context environment, hierarchy adds meaning. You know, it does, you know, how could you at that level do this, you know, and you know, that kind of thing. In the low context culture, the person's identity comes from who they are and their achievements come from themselves. In the high context one, it comes from a number of things, not just that. It comes from the family, your associations, your, you know, the groups you belong to, you know, all those kind of things are built into that. So, low context cultures include places like the USA, Canada, Norway. So low context, meaning they're direct. They say what they mean to say, and that's what they say. Now, in the high context cultures, they're more implicit and roundabout. So here's something now. So in the Caribbean, we have this notion that we're all similar, and you know, because we have a common history, and we seem most of our populations have people extracted from the same population groups on the other side of the Atlantic and all of that. But I would like to invite you, you know, to open your mind on this a bit and understand that there's a difference. Because right now I'm working in an organization where I see a clear difference in 2 distinct cultures. Jamaica, you may have guessed, Jamaica is in the literature described as low context. So and it's dangerous to stereotype, because in every grouping you'll always find exceptions. But generally it's thought that Jamaicans will be direct. They will say what they have to say. And you can rise in Jamaica based on you and your achievements. And I always wondered, for example, that Jamaica is one of the few. I mean, now it has changed because people are moving around. But decades ago, someone from the Eastern Caribbean could rise to the top in Jamaica You couldn't do that in many of the other Caribbean countries. So a Barbadian or somebody from somewhere else could become a permanent secretary in Jamaica. I don't think you could do that in Trinidad or Barbados anyway. And I believe it's part of the national culture. You know, once you prove yourself, once you've achieved, and once Jamaicans feel, okay, this person's worth their salt, you let them go. And then you say what you mean. Now, Barbados is socialized completely differently. Barbados is a high context society. So people speak implicitly. They're only direct with people who are close to them. Yeah? People are close to them, they're direct. But with people in authority and all of that, they communicate in a sort of implicit way. Now you see where I'm going with this. So if you have both Jamaicans who stick to their way of their culture and Barbadians who stick to how they have been socialized and they're in the same organization, you can see the difficulty you'll have. Because the Jamaicans will feel they can say, this is what it is, that thing is blue. And the Barbadians will be offended. They might even think it's rude. Yeah? No, the Jamaicans won't, for not on earth, understand, well, why do you think that's rude? Because that's what it is. And the Barbadians will be like, well, how could you say that to me? You in that position, you know, they put context there. How could you say that? I'll give you a simple example. So if a Jamaican CEO says to a group, you know, we did well last year. And so if you look in your accounts, you'll find a little something, you know, a little something. If you say that in a group and they're Jamaicans, my guess is that most Jamaicans will be like, laugh it off. Even if they feel it's a little bit, they laugh and say, oh, that's all you all could give me, you know, but they take it as a joke and they move on. If you say that, if a Jamaican says that, a Jamaican CEO says that to a group of Barbadians, they'll be offended because they're like, how could he say that? You know, how could he say something like that? How could, you know, doing as if he's giving us handouts and whatever. You know, so it's and as I said, I'm stereotyping and that's dangerous, but generally that's what. So I would hear the two groups talking past each other and I'm understanding what is happening, but because you never understand your culture until you try to live somebody else's culture, because you're doing these things and you're not even aware that you're doing them. You know, you're doing them naturally. It's like, yeah, because if I would tell maybe the Jamaican, hey, you know, that, I'm sure the person would say, what you mean? But I just say that, that's what it is. I thought it was a joke and I thought it was that or that. And if I ask the other side, well, why did you find that? They say, but he couldn't say that. Why could he say something like that? You know? And so my point here is not to labor this, but just to remind you that you have to be conscious of the culture, because even within Jamaica, you'd have people who are socialized differently. So just be aware of that. Be aware of that when you're trying to build relationships, that, you know, what you think is normal, what you think is okay might not be okay for somebody who grew up in another part of Jamaica on another set of rules. Yeah. And of course, the other one is how to address incivility. And I'll just quickly go through that. We have about 13 minutes, I think. So I'm very concerned about incivility, and especially when we pass it off as a joke. Yeah. And so if you marry that with the same cultural thing, sometimes we pass things off as a joke, and some people take it as a joke, and others don't. I'll give you a quick example again. When we have the chain of small islands, right? So you have those that are north and those that are south. So the southern ones are Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada. Higher up, you have St. Kitts and Anguilla, and you know. So when I went to work in St. Kitts, I'm from Dominica, and I would meet Dominicans and St. Lucians and so on. And, you know, we'd argue loudly, and we'd be having drinks, and, you know, the conversation, I mean, we say things to each other. And the Kittitians were always shocked when they see us, you know, being cordial after that. Because the way they have been socialized is once you raise your voice with someone, that relationship is over. You see? So what I'm begging you to do is not to take your culture for granted, not to take your practices for granted, because kind of examine them and understand that not everyone is socialized that way. And even in your own organization, in your own country, you may have people socialized in a different way. Yeah. So as this incivility thing, model the good behavior. So you do what it is you want to see others doing to each other. Ask people for feedback. Remember the thing about intention versus impact. You will only know the impact when you ask the people. So you know what you intended, you've done it, and just ask them, just ask a few, how did that go? How did that hit you? You know what I was saying, and pay attention to your progress. So I say sometimes, get a accountability partner who will, if you want to work on a particular thing in terms of your civility on how you come across, you can ask a person, say, hey, listen, I have difficulty with that. So John, what I want you to do is just check me this week. And just, at the end of the day, just give me an idea of when I have been, when I misstep in this area. Manage, in terms of managing the organization, hire for civility. And I know in the public service, you don't always have that choice, but try. Recently, a CEO in one of the countries I visited, I was working there, and the CEO invited me to dinner. And he said to me, if I come, we're going to dinner. There's a young lady working there, and I want you to give me your impressions of her when you finish. So I went, and the lady came up. She presented herself very well. Very professionally, her language, the way she did it, the way she did the service, her attitude, demeanor, all perfect. So at the end, he asked me what I thought, and I said these things. And he said to me, I want that young lady in my bank. He's the country manager for one of the international banks, so he wanted her in one of the branches. He said, because that's the kind of energy I want in that branch. I'm trying to change the culture. And so I want to hire some more people with that kind of attitude so that it can change. Because the point is, unfortunately, it's very difficult to train for attitude. You can help people develop technical skills and all those things. But a lot of the other things, those behaviors there, you can send people to school about these things from now to whenever. There are people who teach those things, but they cannot exhibit it themselves because it's something a little bit more complex. So it's better, it's easier to hire for attitude and then get them the technical skills. Once you have ascertained before you hire, person has the ability to learn and learn quickly, you take them for the good attitude and the civility, and then you work with them, on the other things. Of course, those you have that you can't let go, try to teach civility. And there's a way to teach it. It's something you can learn, teach it. And the way to teach it is, why is it important, and role playing and examples. And you make people take examples from their own lives, and you try to relate it and say, listen, this is what we're trying to create here. And if we treat each other like this, then, what I told one group, well, the union leaders, I said, you complain about the incivility you suffer at the hands of the management. What I want you to do is to have a campaign within your group so that you start treating each other civilly. Then you can stand on that platform and say to management, hey, listen, this is how we want to treat each other, and this is how we want you to treat us. And then you have a better case. Of course, create group norms. I like that, where you get people to agree beforehand. So if you have the 3 or 4 things that aggravate some people and destroy civility, destroy relationships, let the group come up with them, let them agree to them, you post them somewhere. And I find that helps, because then my conversation with any colleague, a peer, not somebody I'm supervising, is not personal anymore. It's hard to take it as personal, because then I'm referring to the group norms. I'm saying, John, the other day, you see those things, we agreed to them, but I noticed you did that, and it doesn't sound like that. So he might still get upset, but it's a little more constructive if I do it like that than if I didn't have the norms and I just get on his case because he figured it's really personal. Of course, you reward the good behavior to reinforce it. So right now I'm going to go through these 2 quick videos, and they're from Gallup. So Gallup has these 12 questions that they ask when they're measuring engagement. And I chose 2 of them that relate to relationships so that you can get a sense of where they are. Then I'll take some comments from you if you have any. And then we will move towards closing and getting your questions. So let me see if I can do this. You will have to give me quick guidance as to whether you are hearing and seeing the video. Okay.
People want to know that they're more than a number, that they're not just a number, that they actually matter as an individual person. And when they do authentically feel cared about in an environment, they'll be more likely to share information with others. They're going to be more likely to trust other people, which is foundational to getting almost anything done in an organization, is trust. and they're more likely to collaborate with the people around them. People who feel cared about, in fact, teams who feel cared about, where the individuals on the team feel cared about, are stronger on almost every outcome we've ever studied, including productivity, retention rates on the team. Being cared about and having strong relationships is a part of human nature. And it's what people look for when they go into any environment, to be part of a tribe that's significant and to have people that they trust. When mistakes are made on a work team or in an organization, when people feel cared about, they're going to be much more likely to give the benefit of the doubt, to let the person explain why that mistake was made. You can think about this from almost any perspective where someone might feel offended and the other person didn't intend to offend them. They get the benefit of the doubt because there's a relationship there. That's another reason why it's very important. Things won't escalate quickly.
Okay, that's one. I'm going to do another one. And then you can put your comments about those two in the chat. My apologies. It looks like I've lost one of them, but I'll try again. Okay. One moment. Okay, just give me 30 seconds and I should have it. Apologies, I have a slight glitch, but I'm getting there. Give me 1 second. Okay, meanwhile, while you wait, you can just put some comments in the chat and then I will see. Okay, I think I've resolved it, you know. Right, here we go.
You're one of the elements of human nature that we really can't separate from work in the rest of our lives is our need for social connections. We can't ask people to come to work and not be a human being. Part of being a human being is to strive for high social well-being. We spend a lot of our time at work, and we should seek out relationships, really strong relationships with the people with whom we work. Years ago, when we were studying successful teams, we really saw that there's something very different going on in these teams. One of the differentiators was that the glue of the team, how people felt about their coworkers from an emotional standpoint, and how well they got to know one another. And this is an element that differentiates the highest performing teams from others, because it says something special about what's going on inside those teams. Organizations that have more best friends at work, and no organization will get to 100% on that, but those that have more of that going on have a different kind of environment where people trust each other. They're better handoffs. They're looking out for each other when perhaps when an accident is threatening one of their coworkers. They're more likely to share information. They're more likely to have informal, creative discussions about how the organization can get better. This element is also pretty important from a contextual standpoint. You might have a best friend at work, but you might have some of the more basic elements missing, like no clear expectations. That might end up being a gripe session in that setting. So it isn't the first thing to work on, but it's something that builds on top of the other elements and makes the team more dynamic from that perspective. So you might ask yourself, how can I get people to have more best friends at work? What can I do? I would argue from everything I've looked at, this may be the easiest of all the Q12 to act on. It's about creating environments where people have a chance to get to know one another and let human nature take over. That's it. With any question like this, where we're asking about social relationships, there's some social desirability that comes into how people answer it. If we just ask people, do you have friends at work? They're much more likely to say yes. If you ask them if they have a best friend at work, that draws a line. And it says that's a pretty special kind of relationship where I have an extremely high level of trust. I'm much more likely to look out for my colleagues in that kind of environment, and much more likely to share information informally with them and to have more creative discussions.
Okay, so what I want you to pick up from this, I mean, apart from everything else, regardless of what I'm saying about relationships, remember that there are some other elements that you must have. So for example, when I do customer service, for example, you know some of the things we say in customer service, you should be pleasant and you should be, have an open face and all of that. But let me tell you, I'm sure you know, if you have somebody serving you and they're pleasant and smiling and all of that, but they're inefficient, they don't know what they're giving you, they don't follow up and so on, you don't care too much for that service. The same in the organization. So if we spend all our time building relationships and, having best friends in the context of work, but we don't have the other things in place, like clear objectives, good feedback, the tools to do the job, all the other things, then the relationship thing is a waste. So really, building the relationships is something that assumes that you have already committed yourself to putting all the other elements for performance, good performance and good enabling environments in place. Very, very important. So, if you have comments, okay, I see comments in the chat. Right. Thank you, Aldrin. I hope I'm pronouncing the name properly. Yes. So somebody say, I think that's why they say avoid romance at work. So the thing is, what I tell people, I've had the extremes where I go to organizations and a department head isn't speaking to somebody in the department. To me, I don't tolerate that. So any department I'm in, you dare not speak to somebody else in the department. That's not on. One of you will go or both of you have to go, because and what I'm saying here, Grantley, I'm not asking people to go to bed with each other. I'm not even asking you after you leave the place to go to bars and all that. But while you're in there, I want you to be civil with each other. I want you to be able to be cordial, to be civil, to be respectful, and relate in a way that creates that enabling environment we want. So yes, Grantley, there's that danger that we can overstep the boundary and all of that. And that's why I talked about norms, in the sense that if you have norms, then you can set norms around that. If that is a risk, the risk that is likely to happen and it will have a big impact, but it's likely, then you can agree to set some norms around that in terms of how. Now, you can't prevent people from linking up with each other, but what you can do is prevent their behavior and how, the kind of behavior and how it will affect the work. Yeah. So, best friends at work is great until they fall out. And yes, Grantley, no, I agree. Let me tell you, I've done work, with at least one organization, all the organizations in the Caribbean, when I do engagement work, that's the question that most employees have difficulty with. Because in the Caribbean, we understand clearly what we mean by best friend, and it's not, it's not anybody at work. But remember how the best friend was described. It's not best friend in the typical sense, the way we take it. Best friend just means someone you can rely on, someone you can relate to, somebody who, if you're in a bad mood and you go to their desk, they will help uplift you. You know, it's not the kind of best friend that you go and borrow money from and do all those things with. That's not the best friend we're talking about. We're talking best friend meaning somebody who lightens your spirit. You get into their space and you light up. You know, you're having a bad day and you can go to this person and you know, things will happen. Now, if you don't have those kind of people around you, and you obviously have bad days as a human being, then you know you leave that place drained every day. You go home to your loved ones, give them the worst of you, make things bad at home, and then come back even worse the next day to continue to infect the environment. So that's what we mean by best friends. Best friends is like, you know, some kind of, you know, a kind of, so people can, and we can see it from the outside, whether people are relating well or not. And it's not that they're always together and, you know, lovey-dovey and so on, but just that you can see an energy, you know, that's positive between the people, that there's not, you know, there's not some of the friction that I see in a lot of organizations where the body language is kind of really terrifying, you know, so that's what we're looking at. But I understand the concern. Yeah. All right. So
Val,
yes.
sorry,
Yes.
Jerry Vaz has a question. How do you balance building relationships and obtaining meaningful outputs?
Okay, so Jerry, the research shows that if you have all the other performance things in place, yeah, because remember there's some things that guide performance: clear objectives, measures, monitoring. You have to inspect what you expect. You know, if all those things are in place, what the research shows is that the great relationships, if you can make sure relationships between supervisors and the people they supervise, relationships between peers, if that is at a high level, the research is showing that ends up making you more high performing. Your productivity goes up and all of that. So to answer your question, the balance really comes in these other things, that you set measures, you have norms, you have, you know, so it's not like we all liming all day at the work. Is that, yeah, we what you want is for your people when they leave work to leave happy, you know, basically leave with a smile, you know, a smile on their face. And so people can't do that if everybody in there aggravating them. Yeah. But if everybody in there is consciously trying to make sure that they're the best peer, the best co-worker possible, you know, I mean, you won't make it, as they say, you won't get 100%. But if you have more of that, it's more likely it would be an energy giving rather than an energy drawing or taking away kind of environment. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's balanced. It's balanced. Any more, Georgia? Any more questions? And you can look at these stimulus questions I have as well if you want to answer any of those. Yes, Georgia, what's the next one?
Well, Shania Crooks has a hand up.
Okay, so Shania, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so sir, you touched on truth. Well, you shared a lot today, and I must say thank you. As it relates to customer service, oftentimes we always think of it external and not internally, as how we treat each other. And that is one of the biggest problems that we're having overall in the places of work. And, you know, you have a little saying that says the customer is always right. But I do believe it's not a matter that the customer is always right, but we have a responsibility to the customers. If we're working in HR, for example, we have our staff. We have a responsibility to our internal customers to ensure that we serve them. Whether them disgruntled, whether they're lazy, whether them hardworking, we have that responsibility to do what is right for them and to ensure at the end of the day that they feel satisfied. Now, as it relates to your closing reflection, sir, yes. You asked, I like this second one, what I found out about myself. I am a parallel thinker, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Good.
Because funny enough, sometimes I find myself, some people say, boy, Shani, you're not organized. You need to plan and to be more organized. But I realize now why I confuse the linear thinkers, because yes. Really and truly, even though I might not go in the order that they're expecting me to go, I get results. I pull from. My brain is always thinking different ways to ensure to get the ideal results. So, sir, thank you for teaching me that about myself today, and thank you for having us.
Thanks, Sonia. So very good point. And the only thing, so I'm happy you're confident that you're a parallel thinker and you're not making any apologies for it. The only thing is when you're leading people, just be patient with the linear thinkers.
I will try, sir.
Yeah, try. Because the thing is, I'm also a parallel thinker. And every now and then I have to check myself because I go all over the place. And then, somebody will pull me up. I actually have people in my life who will remind me that not everybody works like that. So thanks. Two other points you made, Sonia, that are very important. I think those are critical. The internal customer. So that's the whole point that we bring in. The whole relationship thing is making sure that inside we treat each other well and we build relationships. Because, just like the lady was trying to get data from the countries, and when she built relationships with people, you're getting easier. You want within your organization that that when one department asks for another, they have such a good relationship that the people will understand today that one is a priority. So I'll give you, and also the one that you sidestep to treat with the priority will also understand because they have the relationship. If you don't have a good relationship with the department, you will get problems with both. So the one that you didn't deliver to will say, oh, you don't like them and all of that. But if they have a good relationship with you, they will understand and they say, no, it must be that you had another priority. It must be that you're under some stress, and they will try to help rather than beat you up. So that was a great point, Sonia. The other point you made about the customer being right, the way I used to teach it, and you put it perfectly. But how I used to say, I used to actually say, because I know people object to that statement. So I say, the customer is not always right, but it is our responsibility to make the customer right, which is exactly what you said. You said, hey, we have a duty to these people. We have to make sure they're right. Georgia, any more? Because I can't see.
Yes. So this is a question from Yannick. She's saying, what if you already have a damaged relationship with a coworker? How do you restore it?
Johnny, listen, I'm not even sure I have an answer to that, because the thing is, once trust is lost, it's very difficult to get it back. And I'll go around the bush a little bit before I try to answer your question. But so, for example, I have had cases where the trust between myself and an employee has been destroyed. So usually, because I know it's so difficult, because I know that anything I say to that person, they're not going to hear what I say. It's going to trigger everything else that happened between us before, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So usually I try to separate from the person. I try to either have them in another area if that's possible, or something like that. And what I also do is, and that's a bit more difficult. So for example, when I'm having appraisal discussions with somebody where we don't have the trust, I ask them to bring their shop steward to the meeting, and I tell them I will also bring a fellow manager. So I bring a fellow manager that I can trust, and the person brings their shop steward. And these other people, they just come in to observe, and what we will do at some point, because those two hopefully are not biased and they're hearing the things as said. Whereas because we don't have the trust, I'm hearing the person's comments and conversation in the frame that I've already placed them, and they are doing the same with me. So these two external people help me to get back on track, and I've had cases where, interestingly, some of us are afraid of bringing in the shop steward, but if you have a good shop steward, they will straighten out their member. They'll say, no, man, Mary, that's not what Mourillon is saying. He's saying, based on what I heard, but and then the same thing, my person there with me sometimes will pull me up and say, no, the employee didn't say that. What the employee seems to be trying to say is so, and then they'll give the employee a chance to come in. So your question, I know I haven't answered it because I have grappled with this. It's very, very difficult. But how I would approach it if I have no choice is straight talk, if the person is willing. But sometimes it's so bad they don't want to talk to you. But if you can get them to talk and you say, and you explain to them, listen, I really believe it's in our interest, both our interests, to fix this relationship. And if you're willing to work with it, I will work on it as well. and then you all agree to some things that you will do, you know, and review it periodically. You know, if the other person agrees, then that's great. And then you say, you know, can we just have a little, you know, a little informal meeting every 2 weeks, you know, just to review where we are, you know, so you can tell me if I made any wrong steps, and you will hear from me, you know, if I think you made wrong steps, so we can go ahead. But I must tell you, it's very, very difficult in my experience. And in spite of all the things I just told you there and the things I think I know, when I try to do that practically, it has been I cannot say that I've had 100% success. I probably have even had 75%, barely. You know, and some I just say, you know, yeah. The worst case scenario is that I say, okay, and I actually start like that. I say, listen, I know, you know, we haven't had the best of relationships, but, you know, on this occasion, you know, let's agree on, you know, so that's why I go back to the logic and the work and the rationale, because I know the other thing is a bit shaky. So I say, okay, and hopefully if you be consistent, you know, and over time, hopefully the person will, you know, you get back some of the trust. Any more, Georgia? Oh, we have 15 minutes. Yeah, well, not 15. I think we have to give you time for wrap up. But
yes, we have a question from Sedicia. How do you address incivility without persons becoming offended or also being defensive?
Okay. And that's a very good question, in the sense that, as I said before, a lot of people who are allowed to continue practicing incivility, they have other qualities that the CEO or the management or so like. They're probably delivering results, and sometimes the management feel, oh, that person is putting them in their place and straightening them out. So they basically have sponsorship at a higher level. So so that's one part of the difficulty. The other part of the difficulty is just human. Anytime you give somebody feedback that's developmental, anytime you try to tell someone, that's something that happens to all of us. Once you enter a situation where you're telling someone, hey, listen, what you're doing there is not right, the natural response, we go through, using the same grief formula, you go through the 4 stages. You go through surprise, because at first you're surprised, how that person pick on me, and why are they saying that? And then you go through anger. You're like, who they think they are to be telling me this kind of thing? And then you go through rationalization, trying to make excuses for yourself. And if you're mature enough, you get to rationalization. So the thing is, you have to expect that if you give people feedback, that's what will happen. The best approach is, rather than one-on-one doing it, if it's an issue in your work team, get the team to agree to set up some norms around civility. So, you know, this is what we will do. This is what we won't do, you know, in dealing with each other, in communicating with each other, in handling work of each other. You know, you set like 4 or 5 rules or norms, and you make sure, and you don't set it yourself. You make them come up with it. You say, listen, wouldn't you like an environment where this, that, or that, you know, and some people might abstain, but some of them will think. So if you get a majority to say, okay, this is what we're going to abide by, you confirm, and you put it up on that wall, you don't put it up where everybody can see, you put it on the desktop, and then that way, it won't take it away, but it reduces the feeling that this is personal, because you're saying, we on the 21st of November 2022 agreed to those norms. I'm sure we agreed and we have not changed them. And what I'm seeing, and you do that one-on-one, you don't do that in public. You catch Jane by herself and you have a chat with her. You say, Jane, I want to talk to you about this thing that happened yesterday, you know, and you mention what happened and the impact it might have on the work. And you tell them, hey, listen, this is directly coming from our norms. You know, we agreed on those norms because we wanted to get a better department. We wanted to excel and so on. We thought if we all adhere to those things, we'll be better. But I see that you didn't do it. Of course, Jane might go through all the stages, including rationalization. Oh, yeah, they did it to me. That's what I did it to them. And, you know, but then Jane will still reflect. And at least it wouldn't be as bruising to her as if there were no norms and it would look as if you just pick on her. Because she's not saying, oh, but Jerry and all these people doing the same thing and you never tell them anything, you know. But if it's the norms and if we make sure we pull up everybody who violates them, then that's it. So that's just one solution. Any more, Georgia? Or you stop me when it's time?
Yes. I have a comment and a question from Margaret.
Yes. Sure.
She says her staff believes that higher management do not, the staff don't feel valued by management. So how does she as a supervisor build their morale?
Yes, yes. You know, that it's sad because it's not, and Margaret, is not just your organization. I'm now doing work in 2 organizations where the staff continually say that the executives, the managers, they don't care. And this, the interesting thing is, as an outsider, I'm seeing all the efforts that the executives and the managers are doing to show caring. But you see, I think what happens is the everyday, what you say every day and your actions every day. That's what you have to monitor. You have to monitor your actions and what you say every single day. Because if that group you're working with, Margaret, if they have suffered moral injury, nothing to do with you, maybe with some other manager that they had before, everything you say or do will be suspect, because they will tie it to something that happened before and they say, oh, you see, she's doing that again, so she doesn't really care. So I had a simple example in one of these organizations where the people feel, okay, management don't care, or they want to muzzle them and so on. And so for years they were doing these engagement things with Gallup, and the staff keep asking, they say, no, we don't just want to put a score, we want to be able to put a comment. And the people, they were administering it on a Gallup platform, but it's the HR people doing it. And the HR people said, you know, it doesn't allow us to do this, it doesn't allow us to do that, it doesn't allow us to do the next. And but the staff kept being disgruntled. Now their view was that, oh, the management doesn't want to hear what we have to say. Yeah. Now when I went in and tried to administer the thing, and I checked with Gallup, they say, of course, you can do any kind of questions you want. You know, it has, and they show me all the facilities and so on. And so we ran the thing. Now, the point here is, because they have that impression that management doesn't care and management wants to muzzle them, they interpreted that as, you know, not being given the chance to give the comments is management that didn't do it. When in fact it's some functionary in the organization that either didn't take the time or didn't know how and didn't do it. So it's a complex issue, Margaret. It's like what happened before, and you have to, a simple example, during the COVID, about a year and a half ago, in one department, someone went down with COVID. And so the head of the department called the divisional chief and said, you know, Jane has just gone down with COVID and so on. And the division chiefs, because it was crunch time for production, the first question Jane, the division chief asked was, also, how are we going to meet the targets? Now, no matter, Margaret, no matter how much you tell people you care and you behave like that, they are not going to believe you. So because the manager, not even the staff member, the manager was very hurt by that. Because the manager is saying, but you know, she didn't even ask how badly it is, whether she's at the isolation center, how her family, how about the other co-workers are wrong. You understand? So it's not simple, and it's something that will take time for them to believe that you really care. And so every word you say, every action, and that's why we said in the example before that you get an accountability partner and you also ask them for feedback. You have to ask, but don't believe there's no switch. And anytime you say or do something that triggers the past where they were hurt, it's going to come back again. And then you are going to be astonished because you say, but this is not me. I didn't do that to them, but yet they're feeling like that. But sometimes you're not responsible, but you triggered it by something you either said or didn't say or did or didn't do. I know this is not a clear answer, but this is a very fuzzy area and it's not easy. It's something you have to work at. And my advice is that you have a plan and you decide how you're going to show it. You decide how your leadership team going to show it among this group. And you all agree to be accountability partners for each other. So when anybody says something out of line that will make the staff feel not valued, then you do that. You pull them up and you apologize and you say, hey, listen, we didn't mean that. This is what. And then over time, hopefully, they will trust you. And sometimes what we believe the staff want is not what they really want. So sometimes you believe they want this, that, and the other. And sometimes if you ask them, they say, no, what we want is that. And they feel a way when you don't respect their expertise, and sometimes and sometimes you're doing it because of the exigencies of your work, the service, and then but to them, remember intentions and impact. Your intention is to get a job done well, but the impact is like, oh, you don't care, you just move over that. So and so another thing is to explain. When you have to skip attending to their needs, really explain and really apologize. Say, on this occasion, I understand that you have that need, but here's what, well, not but, they say but brings up challenges. Here's what we need to also address. And as soon as we get that done, we will come back to you. The thing most of us do, if we cannot solve the problem, we don't say anything. And people interpreted that as we don't care. When in actual fact, we care, but it's just how we figure, oh, we can solve it. So why bother tell you anything? But it's more respectful to talk to the person and say, listen, we can. Georgia, I suspect we're in trouble for time, or are we good?
We are good. I just wanted to read this comment because I think it answers perhaps the first question, what has emerged. Okay. This presentation, and this comment is from Primrose. This presentation, though work-related, is very useful for all aspects of our lives as we are social beings. What we have learned or have been reminded of here is able to help us to build better relationships all around. And she goes on to thank you for this enlightening presentation.
Yeah, well, thank you too. Thank you too. I'm happy it's of some use. Thanks.
I'm scrolling through to see. Okay, Jerry has this question. What is your take on the use of I and you when communicating in the context of leadership and building positive relationships?
Yes. Okay, that's a good question because there was a time when we made it fashionable. We say, okay, you have to use more we. More we when you are talking. For people to feel included and all of that. But Caribbean people are not stupid. They know very well when the we's are real we and when the I's are I. So what I say is use it mindfully. So when it is as a leader, you have to take responsibility. It's okay to say I. I. When you want people on board, when you feel it's a we, and let me make it very clear. Sometimes as a leader, you have done something, but it's something that somebody on your team also is doing, or also helped, or also contributed to. You remove all credit from yourself and you give the individual the full credit, or you give the team the full credit. You say, as a team, we have accomplished, X, Y, Z. Even if you had the idea before, even if you had started working on it, you nullify that and you give the team full credit. We did it. So it's not a yes or no thing. You have to use good judgment and use, I'm saying do not be afraid to use I, especially when you have to take responsibility, because they know, the staff know when it's your call. So you say that, you claim it. And then, but when you want inclusivity and you want to involve people and so on, you want to make sure people feel valued for their contributions, then that's when you use we. I hardly use you because it comes over as an accusation. There are a few cases where you have to, but I try not to use you. And also I find if I'm working in a team and I refer to them as you, it sets up in their mind that, oh, he doesn't feel he's part of the team. Or big for the team, and So I hope that answer helps. These things are not black or white. It's some of it is fuzzy, but you have to use judgment, and with experience, you will follow the right way. You'll follow the right side at the time appropriately. Yes, Georgia, back to you.
Yeah, I think that's it. What's happening now is participants are placing commendations in the chat, enlightening presentation. Abraham Lincoln says, thanks much from the Chuckle Caribbean Adventures team. Mark says it was a very good session. Commendation to our speaker and to mine. Excellent presentation, very informative, and indeed an eye-opener. Very good presentation. Jerry was just summing up that last point you have, and in terms of confirmation I is for taking responsibility for certain issues, and we for accomplishments.
Yes.
Very enlightening, very relevant presentation. Wow, you have nailed it again.
Thanks, Georgia. Thanks.
So all along the commendations are coming. So yes, we have come to the end of the presentation. What I have just posted in the chat is the end of session evaluation. We do like to get feedback on all of our interventions, and this is yet another one. You can continue in the chat as well to perhaps in one word that sums up your experience here today. But I just want to thank Val for what, and everybody has said it, has been a very enlightening, engaging, insightful, thought-provoking presentation. I mean, Val, you have given us a lot to consider, to think about, to be mindful of. And some of the content I'm remembering that is, quite etched in my memory right now is people are people first. Yeah. That to me is kind of it sums it up. And of course, you have reminded us about the cost of incivility and that we need to model the behavior we want and to set or create group norms. And also the very important fact you highlighted was we need to lead with mutual respect and trust. And I really just want to end with something you said that is also, and that I'm taking away from it is, let us remember to lead with our head, heart, and guts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Val. You have been wonderful again, and it was really a 2 hours well spent. I don't even think I felt the 2 hours went by so quickly, So thank you so much for that. And colleagues, this would not have been possible without your continued support. We really appreciate how you have been supporting the mind as relates to our leadership webinar series and all around to our learning products and consultancy services. Once again, thank you very much. I'm posting the link again for the evaluation session, for the evaluation form. It just takes about 5 minutes, and we really appreciate if you can complete that for us. The platform will remain open for a few more minutes while you continue completing the evaluation. Val, once again, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
And just to let you know, we will send the recording along with the slides. I know some persons came in late and have expressed a desire for same. And also those of you who probably would even want to review the PowerPoint slides subsequent to the session. Okay. I'm very aligned to this presentation. We have an upcoming course called Developing High Performance Teams, where you will certainly get a lot more content around the topic, also relationships and strategies for you to develop your high performing teams. Contact us at mine for those dates and other details related to that course, Developing High Performance Teams. Just another bit of information. This brings us to the end of the leadership webinar series for 2022 to 2023. And I look forward to your support for our leadership webinar series for 2023 to 2024. So our next leadership webinar should be sometime around April or May. Okay, but we will send out all the details as usual.